Okay, we're here today again with Brook Golden Opportunities and Step by Step. Let's see what's happening here. Of course, it's always something. Boop. There we go. All right. So I'm going to give this to you. And we can have a nice conversation.
A little chit chat.
Alright. About sleep and autism. Come here.
Okay.
We're here at the office in Dallas, and these are making fantastic training videos for YouTube. And this is perfect.
Alrighty.
So yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about sleep and how sleep affects autism, how autism can affect sleeping and learning how to sleep. So we're going to go over some basic information on sleep, some things to avoid, some things to do to try to promote some sleep. And then we're going to very briefly talk about a sleep training technique, which has a lot of good research on it. It has a lot of great success. So if you are trying to sleep train yourself or your child, you can absolutely try it today if you wanted to.
I think sleep is insane when you get somebody who might work third shift or who does like 12 days on, 4 days off or something. It's like insane.
Yeah, and the awesome part about this training is although it's focusing on autism, it doesn't mean that you cannot benefit from it as a parent, as someone working third shift, as someone who just has always struggled with sleep. There's a couple tips and tricks in here that will hopefully help you have a better night's sleep.
Yeah, and I'm a night person.
And I am not.
It's ingrained in people, whether they are or are not.
Absolutely.
And that your job and your kids and just the schedule can be completely different.
Absolutely. And part of this training is it's very individualized. So if you are a night person, great. Your sleep schedule is going to be based off of you being a night person. I am a day person, so my sleep schedule is going to be based off of that. Whatever your schedule is, whatever your lifestyle is, this will work. It's not strict. It's not based off of the sunlight. It's just based off of what's going to work for you and your family.
Nice. Love the colors.
Thank you. I went for blue, so it's sleepy time.
Yeah.
So the agenda today is we're going to talk about autism and sleep. We're going to talk about setting up a bedtime routine. We're going to talk about what to avoid. We're going to talk about teaching independent sleeping, and then we're going to go over quiet-based visiting, which is the sleep training method that we're going to talk about today.
Okay.
So starting off, we just have a basic statistic. So 35 to 50% of neurotypical children have difficulties with sleep. However, when you look at the autistic population, 60 to 70% of them have difficulties with sleep. So yes, we understand children struggle with sleep. However, it is much more significant in the autistic population, and it tends to push longer into their lifetime versus neurotypical children where, yes, they struggle with sleep, but they get over it pretty quickly, they learn it pretty quickly, and it's not an issue.
And I definitely have a lot of families who might be grandparents as caregivers. And when their grandchild or great grandchild is up half the night, and then their health starts to fail because they can't get the sleep and the rest to recuperate their bodies, it's very important. Absolutely. I can't wait to hear what you have.
Absolutely. And I kind of talk about it later on, but since you brought it up, I'll mention it now. Is that if your sleeping arrangements right now are not affecting the child, are not affecting the family as a whole, is not affecting the adult and their inability to sleep, then you really don't have an issue. The reason that we hear about sleep being an issue is it becomes an issue for the family, becomes an issue for the parents, and they have to bring it up to figure out what can we do about it. But again, if right now you're comfortable with how your sleeping arrangements are, great, it's not an issue. But if it is an issue, here's a starting point for you guys to start working on. Okay, so now we're going to talk about autism and sleep. So even though individuals are diagnosed with autism, that doesn't mean they have different sleep requirements. They're still a human. They still have a body. They still have a rhythm that they need to follow. Autism doesn't mean that they need different sleep requirements. It's the same. They're a person. They need sleep. However, with autism, you have more complex sensory needs and sensory issues, which can affect going to sleep, staying asleep, falling asleep, all of that. Additionally, individuals with autism are more resistant to change. So when it's 8 o'clock and it's time to go to bed, that's not a change that's easy. All changes for a lot of people can be hard. And so that also causes a struggle and makes it a little bit harder for them to learn a sleeping routine, a bedtime routine. Additionally, individuals with autism typically have more challenging behaviors that extend longer into their lifetime. So again, if they're having a challenging behavior, let's just say aggression. Aggression is a common one that you see and that is obvious. They may engage in aggression into their teens versus neurotypical children tend to stop a little bit younger, around like 6-ish, 7-ish. But with autism, those challenging behaviors are a little bit longer. And so that's also going to extend how difficult it is to teach sleep and how hard it is for them to learn it.
It's like anything when you're learning it. If you put it, the longer you put it off, the longer it is to make it stick. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how autism impacts sleep. So with autism, they feel the world differently. They have different sensory needs. They feel sensory information differently, and so this can interfere with sleeping. Additionally, they can have difficulties with transitioning between activities and locations. So again, starting the bedtime routine, saying it's bedtime, that's not going to work. It needs to be more of a routine. It needs to be given with some flexibility because they're not going to snap their fingers and get up and go. They may need some time. They may need some warnings. They need to have plenty of time to make that decision to get up. Let's do our bedtime routine. Additionally, there's a lot of inconsistencies with waking up and the morning routines. If you're waking up at 7 a.m. one day and then waking up at 11 in the afternoon another day, your body doesn't have a routine. It doesn't have a rhythm that it knows what time they're expected to wake up. So we do, of course, want to make sure that that's consistent as possible with the wake up time, as well as what happens after they wake up.
Even on the weekends.
Even on the weekends, you need to have a consistent schedule. It doesn't have to be as strict, but you still need to be semi-consistent. So if you're waking up for weekdays at 7 because you're going to school, weekends, wake up around 8-ish. Sleeping in, but pretty close to your typical routine. Same thing over the summers. Don't get all out of whack. Maybe your wake up time stretches out and maybe you wake up at 9. That's fine, but keep it consistent as long as possible. Additionally, with autism, they may already have existing sleep challenges, or they may have diagnoses that interferes with sleep. They may have some type of sleeping disorder on top of the autism, which is obviously going to affect sleep. But they may have other diagnoses, which a side effect is poor sleep, or maybe they don't need as much sleep, or maybe they need a lot more sleep. And so it makes it harder for them to come up with a pattern.
This next one is a big
The next one is a big one, and we're going to talk about it. So obviously, a lot of children with autism, a lot of individuals with autism have a dependency on electronics.
They wake up.
Yes, absolutely. And then with the autism, again, it's harder for them to walk away from electronics. It's so entertaining. It's so stimulating to them. So it makes it a lot harder to put it down. It's hard for me as an adult putting down my phone when I get scrolling or online shopping or whatever. So we understand it's hard, but it just makes it a little bit harder for our friends and family members with autism.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously, how are we going to fix this? We understand that autism and sleep do kind of fight with each other. They do cause some issues, but that doesn't mean that's a fact and you can't do anything about it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is selecting the correct bedtime based on your age. So depending on your age, your body will not allow you to go to sleep unless you're awake for a certain amount of hours. So looking on the left side of the screen where we kind of have a chart, we kind of have a pyramid. So if you are 1 year old, a little bit under, a little bit over, you have to be awake for at least 5 hours before your body will accept sleep. If you're 2 years old, you need to be awake for 6 hours.
Oh, wow.
At 3 years old, your body can be awake for either 6 to 12 hours a day before it needs sleep. And around the 2.5 year mark is when typically your child would decide, do I need a nap or am I done with a nap?
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Daycare is forcing those naps.
Exactly. And some kiddos don't because they don't need it. Their body is good to go on 12 hours before they need to go to sleep. Some kiddos aren't, and they still need a nap, or maybe a harder day where they're playing more, they have big activities. That day they may need a nap, but a typical day where they're just chilling, watching TV, playing a little bit, their normal routine, they may not need a nap. When you get to 14 years old, you need to be awake 13 hours before your body will accept sleep. 5 to 7 years old, you need 14 hours before your body will accept sleep.
Oh, wow.
And typically 8 years and older, it's 15 hours.
Okay.
And so when it comes to selecting a bedtime, you need to understand what the body typically needs in order to determine what is a good bedtime. When should they have a nap? So that way you're not just guessing and putting it in your schedule based off of your availability. How does the body, how does their age and development need sleep?
And that's why parents never knew the nap. You can't just let them sleep, because then they have to be up for another 6 hours before they can go back to bed.
But now that you know the numbers, you can say,
Yeah.
okay, if my
I've
kid
never
falls,
seen this chart before.
it's new, it's out there. Sleep studies with autism specifically is giving us a lot of information, which is great because I never knew this. But it's great information. So if your child is starting to fall asleep around 3 o'clock, what is their age? Can they have a nap, or is this going to throw them off for the next week? Which means the whole family is thrown off for the next week. So these waking windows, these times where the child or an adult, whoever needs to be awake, if it's too short of an awake period, then they're going to be sleep resistant, which means that they're not going to go to sleep. If they've only been awake for say they're 2 years old and they've only been awake for 4 hours and you're pushing a nap, they're not going to go to sleep. Their body will not accept that sleep. Same thing if it's too long and your kid is still 2 years old and you're having them stay up till 8 o'clock at night, which is 8 hours awake for them, then they're going to be overly tired and they're going to fall asleep before. They're going to be overly tired and they're emotional and they're upset because they're overly tired. We've all seen grumpy babies.
My husband, forget that, babies. My husband, when he's tired,
Exactly. So this is why before you start teaching sleep training, understanding the body and what time period they need their sleep.
I love doing these with you. I'm learning so much.
Awesome. And you're a parent, like you've gone through this with your kiddos. Your kiddos probably don't take naps. Something you didn't know that probably would have helped you so far.
Yeah, for real.
Okay, so sleep quality is often determined by variables that happen before bedtime and before they actually go to sleep. Why and how? The production of melatonin. Your body does produce melatonin.
Right.
And it needs certain triggers in order to turn on that melatonin. Also, with a good sleep routine and a bedtime routine, your body starts to learn and starts to prepare itself for sleep when it understands, oh, we just had dinner. After dinner, we start winding down a little bit and we're getting ready for sleep. Additionally, your brain expects sleep after it follows a routine. So we want to make sure that we have a good bedtime routine so the body and the mind is on the same page of, oh, we're going to bed soon. So that will make going to sleep, falling asleep, staying asleep a lot easier if you work with your body versus against it. So in order to do a bedtime routine, we need to transition from really high activities to really low activities and teach the body, hey, we're winding down, start producing melatonin, let's get ready for bed. So what we want to do is we want to start our routine about an hour and a half before you want your kid to be asleep. If you want your kid to be asleep at 8, start the routine around 6:30. We want it to be long. We want it to be slow to give the body and the mind time to settle and make sleep a little bit easier for our kiddos. So first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we're stopping any gross motor activities, any super high energy, super active activities. If they're running around outside, let's end that activity. Let's bring them inside. If they're playing on their tablet, if they're watching TV, let's end our show. Let's turn off the TV. Let's reduce all that stimulation so their body can start winding down for the night. So once those high activities are done, we want to give them some type of sensory activity. And that can be Play-Doh, that can be bubbles, that can be laying on a really soft blanket and just hanging out for a little bit. We just want to give their body something soothing. They're still having fun. They're enjoying their sensory activity, but it's not stressful. Their body isn't up and bouncing around. They're slower. They're sitting. Maybe they're walking instead of jumping. Then we want to give them some type of neutral activity. And that could be cleaning up at the end of the day. If it's a neutral activity, if cleaning up is going to upset your child, then that's not a neutral activity. You want to do something that they're okay with. They don't love it. They don't hate it. But they will do it if you ask them to.
Might be like putting a dog outside.
Exactly.
Or,
something that they don't hate, something that they don't love. It's neutral.
Okay.
And then we want to jump into that bath time.
Yeah.
The bath time is going to get their body ready. It's more sensory information. You have water, you have bubbles, you have soap.
The warmth.
The warmth of it, absolutely. And that's, again, just teaching the body, hey, we're slowing down, we're clean, we're getting ready to rest, we're getting our jammies on, we're getting ready for bed. So after bath time, we want to follow that up with a calming sensory activity. So if your kid is really young, maybe like toddler-ish, maybe we give them like a lotion. We give them a little massage. They're getting a lot of sensory information, but it's calming. They're just laying there. They're getting their lotion on, staying nice and moisturized.
That's why you might read a book.
Exactly. Read a book, do like some back scratches, some head rubs.
Yeah.
If you have a girl and she loves her hair getting done, brush your hair for a little bit. You want it to be really calm and comfortable so that way the body feels calm and comfortable. And then once that calming activity is done, we want to turn the lights off and we want to get them to bed. They've had an hour and a half to wind down. So hopefully they will accept sleep a lot easier.
Nice. I'm already calm just talking about it.
Good. So now we're going to talk about things to avoid. So the first one we have is blue lights. This is for anyone and everyone. We don't want blue light right before we go to bed. We don't want to be scrolling on TikTok 2 minutes before we try to get ourselves to go to sleep because our body is not going to go to sleep. So the reasons we are trying to avoid blue light is because it is the same wavelength as the sun. So our body interprets it as, oh, it's daylight outside. I need to be awake.
Okay.
Also, blue light stops the body's natural production of melatonin because the body understands, oh, the sun is out, the sun is shining. Even if it's coming from a screen, the body interprets that information as it's sunny. I need to be awake. I need to be active. So what you want to do is you want to take away blue light at least 1 hour before you expect them to go to bed. So again, the slide before, when we are winding down and transitioning to bedtime, those tablets are gone first. And then we slowly get the body ready to go to sleep. Next thing we're going to talk about is physical activity. We don't want our kids bouncing around. I'm sure some families have heard, like, get your wiggles out before you go to bed. No, because you're going to excite the body. The body's going to be on high alert and it's not going to want to go to sleep. So with a lot of physical activity, that's going to encourage your body to focus and pay attention, which is not what you want to do if you're trying to wind down and go to sleep. Additionally, your body temperature is raised when you're physically active, and your body will not accept sleep if you're hot. Your body needs to be slightly cooler in order to go to sleep. So these are two things that we're going to avoid: blue light and physical activity. And this isn't just for children. This isn't just for children with autism. If you want good sleep, put that phone away an hour before you go to bed. Physical activity, stop. Calm down, let your body chill out so it will go to sleep.
My whole life is like completely destroyed right now.
I used to
work out before bed.
Mm-hmm.
I completely am addicted to the phone at night.
Yeah, everyone is. I am.
I mean, it's nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But we're not done yet. We have more things to avoid.
Oh, man.
So another thing we want to avoid is any change following sleep. So we know the body wakes up naturally during the middle of the night. You may roll over because you're a little bit sore. So you wake up, but you may not notice it. You roll over, you're right back asleep. But if there's any changes following the onset of sleep, that moment you become unconscious and you're asleep, that's going to cause you to wake up. You're going to be startled awake and you're going to stay awake.
Like if you have to go to the bathroom and you flip the light on to the high.
Yep.
or if you have to let the dogs out
Mm-hmm.
and they're not coming in.
Yep. So any
Like-
change in the middle of the night after you're asleep is going to affect your sleep. So for our children, we don't want the parent to go to sleep with the child, because when you get up to go to bed and they wake up an hour later, you're not there. They're immediately scared and wondering what is going on. And so that's going to cause the body to startle awake,
Yeah.
and they're ready to go. They're scared. Their body's ready for fight or flight, and they're not going to go right back to sleep. Another thing you don't want to do is change your sleep location. If you fall asleep on the couch, you don't want to be moved to the bedroom, because again, you're going to wake up sometime in the night realizing you're in your bed and you're like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
How did I get here? And that's scary. Again, your body wakes up. Another thing we want to avoid are bedtime aids. So what I mean by that is if we're going to have some type of aid that helps us sleep, it needs to be on the entire night. So if you have a night light, don't let it turn off after 4 hours, because you're going to wake up in the middle of the night. Even if it's a subtle wake up to roll over, you're going to notice, oh my gosh, the light is off. I'm awake again.
It's all those sound machines that they give
All
you.
the sound machines, you don't want them. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail later. But you don't want anything that's going to turn off in the middle of the night. If you need a sleep aid, if you need a light, if you need sound, if you need air, have it on the entire night.
Nice. This is going to be awesome.
So now we're going to talk about medication.
Okay.
So for this part, we're just talking about medication that you are already being prescribed for some other diagnosis. And the reason we want to talk about medication is to understand the side effects that your medication may have on your sleep. And that's something that we may not always be aware of, or the doctor may not tell you, but then all of a sudden you're not sleeping after you tried a new medication. You need to talk about that to your doctor and figure out what's going on. How is this going to affect my sleep moving forward? You also want to collaborate with your doctors about timing your medication. If you need to take your medication every 6 hours, but taking that medication makes you more awake, then maybe you could talk about changing the timing of your medication. So that way, maybe you take it earlier in the day, so that way when the medication starts wearing off, you're able to go to sleep at a normal time. Of course, this is not any medical professional advice, so make sure you talk about this with a medical professional.
Well, and when you're doing medication management with children, whether they're on the spectrum or not, it's got to have a complete and total. And with the blue light, even a lot of these kids who are nonverbal or partially verbal depend on those talking devices to communicate, but often use those as entertainment too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're not going to have one for entertainment and one for just communication. It makes sense to use it all in one.
Absolutely. And with specifically using electronics for communication purposes or whatever purpose that it needs to be used for, see how you can limit that blue light. You can do a blue light filter.
Right.
You can do maybe an alternative to, okay, an hour before bed, we put the device away to charge, and then maybe we fall back on a different form of communication if your child or if the individual has those skills.
Yeah.
If not, then maybe we do let them have it and we just try to reduce the use of the tablet for just communication. All the apps are shut off an hour and a half before bed, and then they can use it for communication, but they're not sitting on it, playing on it as if it were a typical device.
Yeah.
All right, so bouncing off of medication, we're going to talk about melatonin. So I love this information. I love this slide because I learned so much from it, which I'm very excited to share with everyone.
Good, because I'm
so with melatonin and autism, there are some individuals and there is some research that suggests and shows that individuals with autism tend to produce lower levels of melatonin compared to their neurotypical peers. So naturally, their body may produce less melatonin.
Which would explain the enormous amounts of families who have sleep issues.
Exactly. Okay. It is biological. It is natural. It is a side effect of autism for some individuals. It's not a flat out rule, but there are some studies that suggest melatonin production is lower in autistic individuals. Yeah. With melatonin, once you start, the effectiveness is going to wear off, which means you're going to have to increase and increase and increase over time.
I hear all the time, oh, it stopped working.
Because your body got used to it.
Yeah.
and now you have to up the dose. Additionally, if you take melatonin when you don't need it, it can cause night awakening for all users. So if I need to get up at 4 a.m. and I choose to take a melatonin to help me fall asleep, but I don't really need it, I'm just taking it to help because I know I have an early morning, I can actually wake up in the middle of the night and be up.
No.
And so that's why I don't take melatonin, because it happens to me. When I take it, I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm getting less sleep than if I just went to bed without it. I do fall asleep immediately, but I don't stay awake, or I don't stay asleep. I wake up in the middle of the night.
Okay.
Additionally, there is not a lot of research on the long-term effects of melatonin.
Using it.
Of using it. Yeah, we don't know what the long-term effects are. And only in the United States is melatonin available over the counter. Every other country requires a prescription, and most countries will not give you a prescription unless you're 55 years or older.
Oh my God.
The reason they don't give it to you is because melatonin is a hormone.
I thought it was just...
No, it is a hormone, which is
a vitamin. Like,
nope. And that's what everyone thinks. That's what I thought until I looked into the research and I figured out, oh, this isn't just a supplement. This isn't just a natural vitamin.
Yeah.
It's a hormone. Your body is producing melatonin as a hormone.
Because, like, obviously vitamin C is not produced. We have to put it into our bodies. This is crazy.
Exactly. And this is why melatonin is so restricted everywhere else except for the US.
Like, you can buy any of it anywhere.
Anywhere.
That's insane.
Any age, any form in the US. But if you go out of the US, it's a battle. You need a prescription. You need a medical reason why. You need testing done. And they may still say no if you're not 55 years or older.
Oh my gosh.
So think about that. We're giving our toddlers melatonin.
Hormones.
We're giving them hormones.
Well, and the reason I don't take melatonin is because I get crazy dreams.
Yeah.
So I will be dead asleep, but when I wake up, I will feel like I was up all night because I had these crazy dreams.
And there's some research that says that melatonin given to children will cause like nightmares. And I can't think of the word right now, but
do you know how many people just depend on this?
Yeah. And that could be causing
so many
crazy wild dreams that you wake up and you're still exhausted because your body may technically have been asleep, but it also could have been scared and traumatized all night, having terrible nightmares.
Oh my gosh.
So think again before you give your child
we haven't
or
given
anyone
them melatonin in a long time.
Yeah.
But holy smokes. Okay.
So instead of trying melatonin, let's try a whole lot of other things first. And if changing other variables, like getting a good nighttime routine down, if getting a good sleeping window and knowing what time your body needs to go to sleep, if those aren't working, consult a medical professional. A medical professional is going to see if there's some underlying symptoms or some underlying diagnosis which may be affecting your sleep. Or maybe current medications you are affecting your sleep and you're not aware of it. Talk to a medical professional so they can teach you and show you what else is going on. Don't overly rely on melatonin because it doesn't work long term. We don't know what the long-term effects are, and it's a hormone.
So I feel like when I'm at my doctor's, and my doctors are great, but in general, you know, they have a long waiting list of people waiting to see them.
Yeah.
And I think in a lot of cases, it's easier to write you a prescription for an Ambien.
Yeah.
Than it is to help to learn all this stuff. How old are, I mean, I'm in my 40s. I've never heard a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, and absolutely. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's a fast result, but you're also looking at your long-term life and your long-term health. We don't know a lot about melatonin, but we can absolutely learn more about our bodies and learn what else may be going on. Maybe do a sleep study and figure out what's going on.
So you just have to find out who in your area does that stuff, because I don't know how I would get a sleep study if I didn't think that I had sleep apnea or something.
Yeah. So I don't have it outlined here, but I'll just briefly answer the question is if you are considering a sleep study or you're just wondering, why am I so bad at sleeping? Talk to your doctor and keep talking to them about it. Like, hey, these are my issues with sleeping. I've tried XYZ and it's not working. Is it possible for you to order me a sleep study? I have multiple kiddos that I work with who have done sleep studies, have done multiple sleep studies.
Really?
So you absolutely can do one. It's not easy. It's not fast. Your insurance may or may not cover it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can do the study and at least have answers of,
It could
yes,
change
you're
life.
breathing wrong in the middle of the night, that's something you need to know.
Yeah.
Or the results may come out, no, you're sleeping body-wise completely normal, so we need to figure out something else. It's not
Stop
medical.
drinking energy drinks before bed.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
absolutely. So we want to try other variables before we fall back to just melatonin or another sleep drug.
Why do people drink coffee before bed?
I like it.
Yeah, but does it help you go to sleep, or does it?
For me,
Is it decaf?
no. For me, I have kind of taught my body to have really high levels of caffeine and still be able to go to sleep. So unfortunately, I have a caffeine addiction, which means that I can drink a coffee before bed and go straight to sleep.
Yeah.
But other
but
people,
that works for you and your body, right?
It does.
Okay, maybe it's
I don't do it, but occasionally if I'm like out fancy celebrating a holiday or something, I may have a coffee at dinner.
And that helps you get home.
It does.
As far as I'm concerned, that's what helps us get back home safely.
Yeah, but caffeine for me, I break all the rules. Don't listen to my advice for caffeine. Okay, so now we're going to start talking about teaching sleep independence. So some things that we want to do before we really start pushing and teaching sleep is just making sure the environment is set up. We want to make sure that they are waking up at the same time every day before we start teaching sleep. We want to get them at least 1 week of waking up at the same time so their body starts to naturally adjust. Yeah. We don't want them waking up whenever they want to, taking naps whenever they want to. We want them to be consistent. So if you're ready to start sleep training, start waking them up at a consistent time. Yes, they may be cranky. Yes, you may be cranky, but start working on a routine so that way you can be successful with sleep training. Additionally, if they're over that 2 to 3 year age where typical kiddos will start getting rid of naps, the naps kind of go away around 2 to 3 years old. Mm-hmm. If they're 5, eliminate daytime naps. Take away the nap so their body is getting used to, okay, I'm not going to sleep at this time. My body needs to get ready to go to sleep at the same time and wake up at the same time. And we also want to offer sleep at the end of the waking window. So again, if they are 2 years old, they need to be awake for, I believe it was 5 hours. Yeah. And that's up a couple slides, but we want them to be awake a certain amount of time based on their age before we offer them sleep. Okay. Again,
I got confused with the waking window piece. But then as soon as you said the amount of time they have to stay awake before their body will accept sleep.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And that's just up a couple slides, easy for you to find. And again, we want to set up a bedtime routine. We want the transition from playing and being awake to be long and slow. Again, going back to that 1.5 hour mark. We want the transition to be slow and easy so that way their body can produce the hormones they need to go to sleep and get ready to go to sleep.
Thinking about how overstimulating my house is, the 30 minutes even before bed is, I'll never be able to do it again now.
And even though you're super stimulated 30 minutes before you go to bed, you're probably up thinking and your body isn't ready to go to sleep. You're running around in your mind thinking about, what do I have to do? What didn't I do? What happened today? And your body is going to stay awake. It's resisting that sleep because you didn't give it enough time to settle. And so with the bedtime routine, we're also going to talk about quiet-based visiting, which is the sleep training method that we're going to talk about. Okay. So quiet-based visiting is a very gentle approach to teaching sleep. It is not strict. It is not a lot of steps. It is not overly complicated. It's very simple, and it allows you and your child to progress to the next level day by day. There's no rush. There's no rush to get to a deadline and teaching them to go to sleep. You're teaching them to go to sleep. You're not expecting them to just magically fall asleep and know how to go to sleep by themselves. You're teaching them.
It's weird how much you just expect kids, babies, just to do it.
Absolutely.
Just do it.
They can't. They don't know the skill. They have to be taught. So the first step of quiet-based visiting is pretty much called be right back. So I've done the bedtime routine. You've had the 1.5 hour to transition to bed. Your kiddo is in their bed. wherever they're sleeping at, they're in their bed. And you just say quick, hey, I got to go real quick. I'll be right back. And then you leave them. And what you're doing is you're practicing that separation. You're also practicing them waiting for you to return. What you don't want to do is say, be right back, and then never come back. Because now they're learning, oh, be right back is a lie. They're not coming back to me. And they may start building a little bit of mistrust. So we are avoiding that by saying, be right back, and come right back.
Yeah.
So what you want to do to start this off is your child's in bed, you say a quick, be right back, and you leave the room for a short amount of time.
Sorry, I opened the drink.
You're good. And that short amount of time is based off of how well and how long your child can wait on their own. So if you've never tried waiting, okay, maybe it's a quick 5 seconds and I'm barely out the room before I come right back. If your child has really good waiting toleration, then cool. Maybe you give them 5 minutes. Be right back. I'm gone for 5 minutes, and then I come back to you. You're just practicing that waiting, and you're practicing that separation at bedtime. The other thing that we're going to practice with them is while you're getting ready for bed and you're maybe a step or two before they're in bed by themselves, start letting them know that you have a few things to do. You're going to be busy, but you're going to keep checking on them as they fall asleep. So what you're doing is you're just giving them that heads up of, look, I have a couple things I need to do. You're going to stay in your bed. I'm going to go do my thing, and then I'm going to come back and check on you. Same thing with like the be right back. Hey, I have a few things to do. I'll be right back. Leave the room for a short amount of time. And then when you come back, you're going to very gently touch them to like reassure them, hey, I'm here. That could be a pat on the back. That could be a head rub, kiss on the cheek, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. But you are coming back. You're giving them a gentle reminder, hey, I'm physically here, but you're not really talking to them. It's just be right back, leave. When you come back, reassure them with a quick touch. And hopefully their eyes are already closed. Hopefully they're already trying to go to sleep by the time you return. And so that gentle touch isn't going to be startling them awake. Hopefully they're not staring at you, waiting for you to come back. And if they do, that's fine. You're just going to keep building up that wait period and that be right back period until they fall asleep on their own, because you're teaching them, hey, try to go to sleep on your own. I'll begin to check on you. You're not alone. And as you do this, because you're going to do this multiple times while they're laying in bed, you're going to touch them lighter. You're going to make those wait periods longer. So you may start off, hey, I've got things to do. I'll be right back. I'm leaving you for 2 minutes. Okay, they're still awake. You give them a quick rub. Maybe you talk to them for a quick second because they're awake. And you're like, okay, I'm busy again. I got to go. I'll be right back. Leave for maybe 10 minutes. Maybe they're a little bit more calm. Maybe they are slowly trying to get themselves to go to sleep. So you come back in, give them a quick kiss, make sure they're okay. And then again, I'll be right back. Whisper it to them. You want you transitioning and fading out of the room to be gentle and slow, so that way they don't need you there and they can fall asleep on their own. And that's essentially what you're doing. You're teaching them to fall asleep on their own, but you're still there as a reassurance. You're not gone. You're not forcing them to go to sleep on their own. You're still there, but you're slowly teaching them, hey, wait for me. Hey, be separate from me for a little bit. You're going to be okay. And those are the 2 steps of quiet-based visiting.
Okay.
So with sleeping, there's a lot of common questions that we have. So I decided to answer a few of them because I'm sure families have additional questions that I didn't cover in this training. So night lights. We kind of talked about this earlier. If you have night lights, leave them on all night long. You don't want them to turn off in the middle of the night, because when you wake up in the middle of the night, you're going to be startled awake, and then you have to repeat this whole sleeping process. Additionally, try to use some like gentle, soft, ambient lights. We don't want to have the bright colors. We don't want to have the movement.
All the kid stuff is bright colors and flashing and fading.
And that's keeping them up and keeping them stimulated and potentially causing some
there's
behaviors.
a setting like, we gave him a choice and he chose the crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So now he doesn't get to choose.
And of course,
he can choose what color, but
yeah, you can choose which color. You can absolutely do blue lights. You can do a color, but try to tone it down as much as possible and try to fade it out to a more natural ambient lighting.
Gotcha.
If right now they already have a nightlight and it does constellations on the ceiling, all right, let's slowly get rid of that before we start teaching sleep training.
Almost all of those turn off after 20 minutes.
And that's why your kid doesn't stay asleep all night, because their body notices that even if they're unconscious and they're sleeping, their body's still alive. It's still noticing things, and that can cause them to wake up. So again, night lights, great. Leave them on all night long, every single night, and try to make it as ambient and as natural as possible. Same thing with white noise. Great if it's on all night long. If it turns off after a couple of hours, they may wake up from that.
I looked at the next one.
Yes.
Explain.
So if you want white noise, that's fine, but you want it to be a quiet, relatively calming, and you also want it to be repetitive. So a lot of noise machines and like music that you listen to go to sleep tends to be animal and nature sounds. However, those animal and nature sounds vary. It could be like quiet chirping from a bird, and then there's a screeching lion in the background. Okay, that screeching lion is going to startle us awake. It's not rhythmic. It's not consistent through the whole time.
Waves are different too.
Exactly. So
holy smokes.
Nice and gentle, but then there's a crashing wave, and that crashing wave can scare you and wake you up. So if you're going to have noises, it has to be repetitive. It has to be a loop. If it's waves, it's a gentle one wave over and over and over again. If it's nature sound, it is like wind through the trees,
rhythmic,
but same wind. It's not going faster. It's not going slower. It's rhythmic. It's repetitive. Additionally, if you're going to do white noise, quiet and repetitive sounds are best. Ideally, use something you already have. Use a fan. It's quiet. It's repetitive. It's not going to change. Use a humidifier. Quiet. It's repetitive. It's not going to change. Fish tanks. They're not going to change. The bubbling sound is going to be on the whole time. It is on. So if you're going to have a sound machine, great. Choose something that's quiet and repetitive. We don't want something that's going to startle us in the middle of the night, like a lion roaring all of a sudden when you're listening to wood sounds or safari sounds or whatever you're listening to. And again, I kind of talked about this earlier on, room or bed sharing. If the family is sleeping and the individual is sleeping comfortably, then sharing isn't necessarily a problem. If you are sharing a room with maybe an older sibling who has a different sleep schedule, that's fine. You can still teach the individual who needs to be taught how to sleep to sleep. Just because they're sharing a bed with the parents, a lot of kiddos I work with still sleep with their parents. That's fine. If the kid's getting enough sleep, if the parents are getting enough sleep, and everyone's content with their current sleeping arrangements. If someone isn't, if dad is a heavy sleeper and he can deal with the kid bouncing and running and whatever in the middle of the night, but mom can't, that's an issue that needs to be resolved. And again, in some cultures and some families, maybe you are sharing a bedroom. Maybe you are sharing a bed with your twin sibling, or maybe a sibling who's a year older or a year younger. Whatever the case is, you can still teach sleep training even if you're sharing a bed with another person. You can absolutely learn these skills in order to be more successful in your sleep as an individual and being more successful with sleep as a unit.
Nice.
You can absolutely do that. And so very briefly, we're going to talk about reward systems. So the reason that everything I brought up doesn't have a consequence is because sleeping is a skill that needs to be taught. You can't automatically say, hey, you turned 5 years old, you're going to learn to sleep on your own. Good night, I'll see you in the morning. Your kid has no skills to know how to go to sleep, to cope with the fact that they are alone in their dark room and are expected to go to sleep. They're not sure about the monsters under the bed. You have to teach them the skill. You have to teach them, it's okay, you're going to be by yourself for a little bit. Mom and dad are across the hall if you need us. But if you don't need us, great, sleep all night long, please. So independent sleeping is a skill that needs to be taught. Punishing or rewarding a skill that they don't know is not fair. If you tell them you need to be in your bed all night, And if you are in bed all night, I'm going to give you pancakes in the morning. But if they don't have the skill to sleep in their bed all night, they're never going to get those pancakes, and they're never learning how to get those pancakes because they don't have the skills necessary. And that's not fair. It's a skill that needs to be taught. And so we need to take the time to teach them.
And it's a parent has to do it. It's not anything you can leave in the hands of a service provider.
No, and they can absolutely help and sit down and come up with a plan for you. But typically, we're out of the house at night. If you have an overnight aide, absolutely, they may be able to help you a little bit more. But still,
then you're looking at a lot of medical needs.
And you have someone sleeping in your house at night, or they're just awake at night doing their job.
Crazy.
So we want to teach you skills as independently as possible, and it is primarily up to the parents and caregivers. You can absolutely get extra assistance, but it's, again, another sleeping aid that you're going to have to eventually take away.
Yeah.
We want to avoid that at all costs. And so that is the presentation on sleep training. Lindsay, do you have any questions, anything that I didn't talk about?
So I feel like everyone who I've spoken to, and even with my own experiences with my oldest, Jackson, his sleep routine has been extremely interesting from my perspective.
Yeah.
When I brought him home as an infant, they say, wake him up and feed him. Well, after 3 days, I said, nope, this kid is sleeping, and I'm going to let him sleep. He was 10-7. He was not malnourished at all from birth.
Okay.
But he also was sleeping through the night from 3 days on.
Awesome.
And we're going to do that. So, but the real kicker came when we changed his crib to a toddler bed. And he slept in that bed one time, and he's never slept in a bed since in the normal way that we would assume a child would sleep in a bed.
Yeah.
He would climb out, and he would take all the clothing from his dresser drawers, and he would make a bird's nest. And that's where he would fall asleep.
Okay.
Well, as a baby, he's wearing diapers. He'd pee through, and I'd have to wash all the clothes. And I got really tired of that. So I put, the extra safety locks on his dresser drawers so that I would, and I didn't care. He had blankets and other things, but he couldn't get out all his clothes.
Yeah.
And we were watching all of this from the monitor. So we're like, what is he doing?
Yeah.
Well, when I put those locks on the dresser drawers, he would find like a cubby area, just a small space where he was more confined. And that's where he would fall asleep. So it might be on the closet floor or between the bed and the dresser and the small space that was there. And what we ended up finding out was he is an individual who generally needs a lot more pressure.
Okay, yeah.
So sleeping for him on a mattress was not comfortable.
Yeah.
And as an infant or a toddler, that whatever, he was able to say, I'm sleeping here. This is how I sleep.
Yeah.
Obviously without words. So we wanted him to have his own room more privately when we became pregnant with our second kiddo. So we moved him upstairs to a smaller bedroom, and knowing that he didn't want to be in his bed, we made the whole thing very minimalist, because we at that point had our suspicions and were being told by the doctor to wait. So he had taken everything off the walls in the previous room. So we didn't put anything on the walls in the new one, except maybe a decal, or I think I painted his name on his door, the things he couldn't take down.
Yeah.
And he would wake up with the rug marks on his face. So I felt bad as a parent, because those would last all morning. I would deliver him to whatever program, and he would look like I just made him sleep on the floor. But that's where he wanted to sleep. So then I filled his entire room with pillows, and it was like a cloud.
Okay.
And for a kid who likes the pressure, laying on he didn't want to have a blanket on, so he would just cover himself with these pillows. It looked like a mountain of snow.
Yeah.
But it's just so funny to me how his sleep journey has changed so often. And I don't think we did melatonin with him that long because he never needed it.
Mm-hmm.
But he made up his own mind.
Mm-hmm.
And if we had fought that, we wouldn't have learned how, that he needs pressure and all XYZ. I don't know. It's just, I don't understand why it's so difficult for families to figure it out. But going through this training, there's so much that we learned.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping that this can help. But each kid is going to have their own little thing.
Yes.
And just trying to be open to figure it out instead of being so frustrated, which is what I get from a lot of families.
Yeah.
And I was frustrated with my younger one, but with Jackson, now there's also a question as to, he's not leaving his room, but is he asleep the whole night? But since we're not in there with the baby monitor anymore, like every now and then we're like, we hear him just laughing.
Yeah.
And it's like, is he awake or is he laughing in his sleep? And either way, if he's laughing in his sleep, he's not getting good sleep, right?
Yeah.
Essentially, your body is doing stuff while you're. So I think that for anyone who has the questions about what type of sleep are they getting and you don't have a baby monitor, I know certain security companies have things where they can put sensors on the beds and you can see how many times somebody's getting up, because I know they do them for Alzheimer's patients and things like that. So a lot of things that you use for those specialized conditions for seniors, and you can also use for autism. But I think a sleep study, do they have to connect things to your head?
They do. It is a process.
That's a process. Yeah.
It is an overnight stay with the child or whoever's having the evaluation and a parent. You're there at least 24 hours, and they do stick your head with all the
sensors.
Not the sensors, yes. And
I've been watching a lot of Grey's Anatomy.
Okay, awesome. And so they do a sleep study that way to figure out brain waves. What is your brain doing at night? Is it asleep or is it running around and doing all sorts of funny things? Is your body doing funny things in the middle of the night? And they will run various tests while you're sleeping. They may check in on you to see, like, maybe wake you up. I don't know all the details, but they absolutely, it's medical. You have all the sensors on you. They're trying to figure out mentally is something going on, physically is something going on. And if you come back with no results, then maybe it's the environment. And maybe there's not a medical condition going on. Maybe it's something we need to change up in the home. Like your kiddo doesn't like sleeping in a bed. Fine. They're still sleeping.
Right. And that's, as soon as you said, like, let them stay there. Like, don't disrupt them. Yeah. I was like, yeah, I did the right thing.
Yeah. And nobody has the same sleeping pattern.
No.
I have a completely different sleeping pattern than my husband. I have a completely different sleeping pattern than you have. Yeah. Everyone has different ways of falling asleep, staying asleep, and what they like. And there's no rule as to what the correct way to sleep is. It's all individualized, which means with sleeping and with sleep training your kiddo, it's going to have to be an individual approach.
Yeah.
Here's some basic information. Here's a great technique to try, but also figure out what works for you and your family. What is your kiddo trying to tell you, either with the way they're falling asleep, the fact that they're never sleeping on the mattress, but they are sleeping in the closet? What are they telling you, maybe without words, that you can pick up on and try to help them navigate sleep on their terms?
Yeah. I mean, sleep deprivation it causes accidents in the mornings. It causes poor performance left and right. And when I worked at the Graham Academy and also just the summer programs or whatever through different places, you might see a kid asleep in the corner and it's like, well, they were up all night, but they still need to sleep. Well, now that's their pattern, is to come to school and sleep at school, and that has to be broken. But you have to be able to work as a team to kind of reset things.
Yeah.
Because if you need sleep, that can be very dangerous.
Absolutely.
Medically for anyone.
Yeah.
And especially adults who are driving and operating and making decisions.
Yeah.
I swear that's why there's so many. It's not because people are late in the mornings.
Mhm.
Most of those people are pretty alert.
Mhm.
I think it's the people falling asleep.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't talk about all the dangers of sleep deprivation
Right.
because we know it.
Well, and it's more for adults. You
Yeah.
know, kids aren't driving to school.
Yeah.
But, being agitated as an
Mhm.
adult from a poor night's sleep.
That could ruin your life because you had one bad day, you made one bad comment, or you made a mistake because you were tired.
Yeah. But then when we don't set our kids up for success and then
Mhm.
we expect them to go to school and behave and
Mhm.
keep their crap together,
Yeah.
if we're setting them up for failure, we can't punish them for that either.
No.
I mean, sleep is the way I heard about sleep deprivation on the last thing. I was like, yeah, I'm going to get more sleep. It was like looking at it like money.
Mhm.
Like if you have $10 and that's or $8, that's your 8 hours of sleep, whatever it is,
Mhm.
and you end up losing 4. You don't just recoup those. You need to get them back somehow,
Mhm.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Whether you go to bed an hour earlier for the next 4 nights or whatever, or you get 2 additional hours from a nap.
Mhm.
But it's like money. When you take it out, you have to put it back in.
Yeah.
And that I was able to see in my mind clearly and understand it. I withdrew it and I have to deposit it,
Mhm.
But a kid isn't going to understand that.
No, they're not. But their body will
Their
eventually go to sleep, and it may go to sleep at a really bad time. So we want to keep track of that for them, get them on consistent routines, so that way hopefully their body doesn't crash on them and force them to go to sleep because it needs it.
Now, is this something that you would want to parents could, because right now a lot of parents just don't have services.
Mhm.
So is this something that parents could take data on with like ABC data, or is it something else? Just keep it, organized however you're comfortable with it.
Mhm.
Like this is what we did this week before bed,
Mhm.
and these are our outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. If
We're
you-
going to put those on the website too.
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't have access to services, but you want to start addressing a problem, you don't have to be a professional to figure it out. There's a lot of good resources. That's why we do these trainings, is to just give you information to get started. It may not be perfect, but it's something, it's a step in the right direction.
And when you do get services or you do go to that evaluation,
Mhm.
insurance, everything is based off of data.
Yeah.
And if you don't have any data,
Mhm.
you're less likely to get to the root or the solution to that problem as quickly as possible. It's going to take a lot longer.
Mhm.
So any type of documentation that parents or caregivers could keep would be extremely helpful.
Absolutely.
And everyone has their own system with that, but we'll put some tools up on the website too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a couple things from my research, like a checklist to see if your kids are even ready to start sleep training, data collection systems, visual aids on the triangle of sleep. So that way's a little bit prettier and a little bit easier to understand versus in the PowerPoint. So we'll also get those sent to you, get those updated. There's also a lot of people who specialize in sleep. All this information that I got is from Ready Set Sleep LLC.
Okay.
And so they are an organization that focus on sleep, and they focus on sleep with autism. So if you do have questions and you need to speak to a specialist, they're a great resource. They have a website.
We'll link it into this video. We'll put it in the comments in the YouTube when we post it. And then also we are really ramping up our website with the resources, both local resources and just, things people can find on the internet. But at least they don't have to search for it. They can just go to our website and find it.
Yeah.
And that's at parentingautismunited.org. And I love sleep. Why do we put it off? Why do we binge watch? There's a whole science behind that too, but sleep is so much fun.
It is.
And I love it. I feel great after a good night's sleep.
Exactly. And you feel like crap when you get a crappy night of sleep.
Did you see, and this is just a quick little thing.
Okay.
I don't know, when malls were just starting to maybe kind of go out I don't remember what mall it was at, but they had a spot where you could go and sleep. And I think Google does it too. They have cocoons.
Okay.
Where you could go and like take a nap.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, a nap for my husband's like, you're done. I can't take a nap.
Yeah.
I need 4+ hours. If I take a nap, it's because my body is ready to like be done.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So for me, if I nap, I know I'm probably not feeling well. And, it's not for any reason. That's just how my body is. And I know that I'm probably not going to get back up.
Yeah.
And I would rather sleep for 12 to 16 hours because my body is telling me I need it versus, but now I know this whole waking time and all this other stuff. And I just wish I had this information earlier.
Exactly.
Isn't that crap? It's just a crap shoot when you're doing stuff.
But hopefully this will help out some families who are currently going through this, or maybe in the future when they have an additional kid or do start having a family, they have some tools in their tool belt.
Yeah.
To hopefully teach sleep, and they get to sleep, their child gets to sleep, and everyone's happy and well rested.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. And we're going to put this up today. It's everything always goes up immediately. And we'll link it to everything. And if you ever have any questions for Brooke or myself, I will send them to Brooke. And if Brooke doesn't have them, she's great at research. And we can also reach out to the crew that we're going to be linking and everything where a lot of this info came from. Thank you so much. I'm kind of wanting to go home and go to bed now.
Absolutely. I'm going to bed as soon as we're done.
All righty. Thank you. Thank you.
Of course.
We're going to stop sharing. We're good. And we're going to stop recording. Yep. There we go.